Hello and welcome to Turtleneck Tabletalk, the podcast that seeks insightful conversations while promoting the growth of our community. I'm Devin and this is Austin, and we are excited to bring to you another episode of Season 2, Future of Wichita. And we have an incredible guest today.
That's right. We have a really cool guy. And you're going to want to listen to what this guy has to say, not only because he's cool, but because he has experience in a lot of businesses like real estate, oil, gas, aerospace, wine, spirits, agriculture, banking, technology, manufacturing, and some alternative energy industries throughout the Midwest. So if you're interested in any of those things, please give a big welcome behind your phone screens to Gary Oborny, the CEO of Occidental Management.
Well, thank
That's
you.
what we got.
I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you today.
For sure, yeah.
And we're happy to have you here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a great podcast planned here, and we want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit as well.
You bet. So I'm a Wichitan.
Nice.
And born and bred here. I've lived all my life here. And I'm a big fan of Wichita. Nice. And a big fan of entrepreneurship. And my story started as a 19-year-old at Wichita State. Started my first business as a freshman at Wichita State, and eventually grew that into a number of other businesses along the way. And so I think the connection to Wichita is strong, and it's a very entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship-based community. And so you can't think of a better place to start a business or be involved in business than Wichita, because it has a long history and a long connection with entrepreneurship that goes way back. And I think Wichita continues to advance in that category. And our company and a number of us are a part of that advancement, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Definitely.
Nice. So when you first started your business, it was a landscape business, correct?
Thank you. Yes. So, so I was a freshman at Wichita State. My sister's a landscape architect. And so when she was studying landscape architecture at K-State, she also had a couple summer jobs, one in doing landscape maintenance, and then two later on in working in a landscape architecture firm. And so I kind of followed her through high school, and where she had a job, I tend to have a job.
Nice.
And so, one was doing maintenance and plant material, and then that grew into design and surveying and engineering and things of that nature. And so I had a background in high school. One of my favorite classes was drafting and architectural drafting. So I had 3 or 4 years of that during high school. And so that allowed me the understanding of how to lay out vellum and do drawings and do architectural and drafting work and things of that nature. So that really helped her out with her side of the job requirement where she was at. And so that also gave me a really good purview into architecture and drafting and design and things of that nature. And so from that standpoint, I used to help out with that. So the natural progression to then go to starting a landscape construction company was a natural element for me, because us kids grew up in a family business. Our parents had a little dry cleaners. They had a little coin laundry. My dad always had a little business thing going. And us kids were sometimes volunteers and sometimes involuntary volunteers.
Just call it employees.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were put into the unpaid employees.
Yes.
Darn.
And so a lot of times, what did we get out of that? We received a lot of attributes from that. I think the ability to think out of the box, to be self-driven, to be someone that activates and moves forward, without prompting. And also, living in a world where you didn't have a safety net, right? So it was a situation where whatever you got paid was what you earned, what you created. And so in a lot of cases, that can be an uncomfortable situation in a lot of people's lives. And so starting and being part of entrepreneurship early on and living in that environment where I saw my parents have to worry about, did they pay paying the electric bill, paying the gas bill, paying the rent. How do you make the dollars meet at the end of the month? And the last thing you do is pay yourself, right?
Yeah.
You pay everybody else and then you pay yourself. So I lived that environment and I saw that, and it can be a source of really high anxiety for people, or it can be very liberating, because at the end of the day you control your own destiny, and that can be challenging and that can be really exciting.
Yeah.
And so depending on how the day comes down, it can be either way. And so for me, it was a natural progression because I lived in that environment. So I didn't have near the anxiety to be able to jump into starting my own business. And so I did start a landscape construction business. And then we had the oil and gas business. In the late 80s, we had oil and gas that was $8-9 a barrel. And there was a lot of stress in the market. And so it seemed to me that the price couldn't get much lower. So simple laws of economics, buy low, sell high. I thought, you know what, it can't get worse than this. So I thought, this is a good time to try to get in the business. And so got in the oil and gas business, and that's been a terrific business for us even today. And then in the 90s, we had the savings and loan crisis. And, you could buy real estate for 10 and 20 cents on the dollar. And so
That sounds pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. So again, it was a stressful situation, and so it was an opportunity for us to get in. So I think where that kind of takes you full circle as far as my story, it's about identifying opportunities. A lot of times it might be a stressful economic opportunity, and then if we like the industry or we like that there's a business model around that, then we take a look at that industry and say, okay, yes, there's a lot of stress right now. Yes, it could be a difficult situation. Could we build a business model that could be successful coming in at a low position, a low cost position, and then growing it as it recovers? And so I think our story has become, how do we look at value add opportunities and see if we can't play a role in a business model that will work as that particular industry recovers.
There's a lot of gems in what you just said there.
There's so many.
Yeah. I think a really crucial one, though, was understanding that you control your own destiny at such a young age through your parents. Is that that is what led you to take advantage of all these opportunities, and that's still kind of what keeps you going, is that, hey, I can really do what I want. I can make life what I want to make it.
Yeah, some of it's personality or characteristic. I was always kind of a type A personality, and on the football team or the basketball team or whatever, it was okay. You got to be the best.
Yeah.
That's a driver for anybody, but that doesn't mean it's for everybody. There's a lot of roles that even in entrepreneurship that people can play. For instance, you don't have to be necessarily that really dynamic leader, that leadership comes really supernatural. It could be that you're an accountant. And what role would you play in a entrepreneurship venture as a accountant? Well, you could be the CFO, or you could be the person that does all the numbers. And that's a very vital role in any business. They don't necessarily have to be the CEO or president and the overall leader, but because of their talents and their passions, they could utilize that in an entrepreneurship type business venture, right? Yeah. You could be someone that's administrative, or you get all the work done, and you could, again, play a certain role and be successful in an entrepreneurship role. And so I think it's a matter of picking your passions. It's a matter of picking your talents and your skill set and what you like to do every day, and then saying, how do I apply that either entrepreneurially, or how do I apply it in an entrepreneurship type setting?
There you go.
And so I think when we're doing things at Wichita State and with students, it's helping them to recognize where their passions and talents are, and then how can that play to their role in a partnership of a business or starting a business or doing something of that nature. And there's a lot of ways to play.
Yeah.
So you just have to find out where your niche is.
Yeah. Is it niche or niche?
I've
always said niche.
You know, I'm from Kansas, so it would be
Je ne sais pas niche.
yeah. I mean, is it Arkansas River or Arkansas?
Okay, it's
You know,
Arkansas,
right? Yeah,
right?
well,
or wait, no, hold on.
Kansas.
If you're from Wichita,
Sorry.
Kansas, it's Arkansas.
It's like it
Right.
technically is our Kansas River.
Right.
I won't.
Yeah.
I think I just incriminated myself
Right,
there,
just
so I'm gonna
did,
stop
yeah.
talking.
Well, no, I mean, right. Do people say when they go down Greenwich, do they say Greenwich or Greenwich? In Wichita, you say Greenwich.
Once again, I'm not gonna incriminate myself.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely.
That's part of being from Doodah.
Doodah.
Right.
Yeah,
You've heard
Doodah-
that, right?
Doodah Diner. I've been
Okay,
there.
well, Doodah, I mean, Doodah is the code word for Wichita, right? So
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
know
if
that
you're
either.
old school from Wichita and I run into somebody that has moved to another city that I know,
Yeah.
or I'm out traveling somewhere and I'm outside of Wichita, we usually say, "Hey, how's Doodah?"
How's it Doodah?
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
There you go,
when
man.
was the last time Doodah was used as Wichita?
I don't know. I used it 3 times last week. So, it might depend generationally how.
Okay.
where
All
we're
right.
at.
I'm gonna keep that going.
There
We're
you
gonna
go.
keep that
There we go.
going.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Yeah,
to
keep the
Doodah.
tradition going.
That's right. That's right. We're gonna rename this podcast
Yeah.
to the Doodah.
And that's why Doodah Diner is called what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
Right.
the owners he was a year younger than I was at Cape Mount Carmel,
Oh, cool.
Okay.
where I went to
Very
high
cool.
school.
Nice. And you played sports there as well.
A little
Talking
bit.
about- yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Very good. Very good. But I think we were gonna go back to that question or what you were saying because once again
There were
so many gems.
Yeah.
Right.
But you kind of had finding those niche opportunities to build Occidental Management, which became I don't know when you named it that or when you kind of started calling it a management corporation instead of just you kind of investing in things. But I guess we want to hear your journey with that a little bit more
Sure.
and to where it's became today.
Yeah. So the name originated from the Occidental Building.
Occidental Building.
Okay,
yeah,
so-
which is the oldest commercial building in Wichita. So that's at 2nd Street in Maine. And so you have the Epic Center, which is the tallest building in the state. And then you have the Occidental Building across the street that is technically the oldest commercial building in Wichita, built in 1873.
Oh, wow.
And so from that standpoint, that was the first commercial property that I bought of any magnitude. And so we were sitting in the office. In fact, we were sitting on a couple cardboard boxes because our office furniture hadn't arrived yet. And I was talking with, at the time, my girlfriend, which is my wife now. And we were talking, and I had talked her into leaving her insurance. She was a claims manager for American Family Insurance. And so I talked to her about becoming my property manager. And I said, hey, if we team up here, and you leave your position, then we can have lunch every day together. We can have dinner together. We can go on vacations
That's
at the
so
same
wise
time
on
together.
so many different
Yeah.
levels.
And I said, look, we can work together.
Yeah.
And so I said, you do the property management, and I'll do the leasing, and I'll do the other items involved. And so we shook on it, and so we were sitting there, and we said, well, what do we want to call this? And I said, well, God, we're sitting in the oldest commercial building in Wichita, the Occidental Building. I said, why don't we just name it Occidental Management? And
Fair enough.
very simple, very straightforward. Occidental, what it means, it's pinnacle or the top, the elite. It has a number of connotations to it that are positive. And so we thought, you know what, that's a good one. And also we're picking a name that people also know the Occidental Building is an iconic building. And so we thought, you know what, that's a really good brand tie-in that we could also do something with.
Very good.
And so, of course, we have Bob Abram here, and he is along with us, and Dina, and our marketing team. And of course, Bob was worked with us on the very first of our marketing and branding, and kind of our bird icon that we have today. And the tagline with that is where ideas take flight. And so it being kind of an aviation community, our logo means a number of things to us. But at the end of the day, it means where ideas take flight. So we're a creative idea company, and we're always looking to advance. We try to be comfortable with uncomfortable. You'll hear me say that a lot when we talk, but that just means that we always want to be breaking new ground. And just like a lot of your listeners or a lot of the WSU students, a lot of people in entrepreneurship, when you first start, you're not going to be comfortable. And you have to get used to that. You have to get inspired by it. And so what that means is a lot of times you're going to be put in situations you're not comfortable with. But the reason why that's a positive is you're breaking new ground. You're stretching yourself. You're getting yourself out of your comfort level.
Taking risks.
And you're taking risk. Now, when you take
we'll get to
risks
that later.
So when you take risks for risk's sake, that's gambling. And I'm not into gambling.
Okay.
But when you take calculated risk,
There you go.
that's a lot different. So when you calculated the upside and the downside and you put it in perspective and you say, look, the upside outweighs the downside, then I think that's a positive calculated risk that you're taking. Throwing dice and gambling, that can go either way.
That's just pure risk.
And that's just pure risk, and we try not to do that.
What has been the biggest calculated risk you've made, and some of them that haven't worked out and some of the ones that have worked out?
Yeah.
So from a monetary standpoint,
Whatever you'd like to take it.
yeah. So I mean, if you want to throw it in terms of dollars, I mean, probably our biggest risk is $230 million on a project, right?
Yeah, that's pretty big.
And signing notes to that effect, right?
Yeah.
Even though you have limited or potential non-recourse to that situation, it still is a risk. One that's not been successful. I once invested in a hotel sight unseen with from a standpoint of just trying to support a friend and their opportunity that they wanted to do. I never went to the hotel, never was there, never saw it. That's very unusual for me to do. And so a good life lesson in the standpoint of, yes, you want to help out friends. Yes, you want to help out to move initiatives forward, but you still need to make good judgments. And so at the end of the day, for where I was in life and economics, it wasn't a big risk.
Yeah.
And so, and the individual that I was trying to support is a very capable person. And so in my book, at the end of the day, it was a worthwhile risk. But at the end of the day, we sold out of that thing and got some of our money back. But that is something that, from my standpoint, was maybe a little bit out of character, in that I like to really make sure that we understand what the risk level is, and we're pretty hands-on. So, 99% of what we do, we're very hands-on. We're very much within the controlling interest, and we're very much have our team working on that together. And from there, I think we're very comfortable that we can be successful.
Okay. So kind of tying back into when you first started, what was kind of like your vision when you first started, and how has it changed throughout the years?
To what it is today.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think our initial, my initial vision is one, to get started, right? And then the second thing that happens is you start to scale, right? So I think I tend to turn my focus towards business concepts or business opportunities that can be scaled versus a lifestyle business. To me, a lifestyle business is something that a person would do that maybe they have kids or maybe they have other goals, but yet they want to work for themselves. And so they tend to work it around that lifestyle. Whereas what we do is we have standalone companies with standalone management, and those companies look to scale and become their own independent entity that can grow, right? And so with a team. And so what you do is you very quickly you find out that if you're going to scale, you don't do that by yourself, right? You have to have a team involved, and you have to have on that team very talented people, very passionate people, people that think in alignment with the values that you have for the company. And together, you start to build that success and scale that company together. And so at the end of the day, you don't build scalable companies that are successful by yourself. And so the biggest transition, if you're a very independent person that is used to doing a lot of things by yourself, is to now learn trust. And to learn how to trust people and how to trust their expertise, and then start to support them. And now your role changes, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I stay on plan? How do I stay true to the values and a lot of the things that you've learned from an economic standpoint, but now support this team as they're trying to help move the model forward also. And boy, that's, if you were going to say not risk, but one of the biggest challenges to learn, that's the biggest challenge to learn is how do you be thankful? How do you support your team and always be inclusive of the team? And boy, that's a big challenge. And so that's an area where personally I've had to grow and get better at. Being involved in the community is a part of that. And so we've had to grow, and I've had to grow in my community interaction, because now it's more than just dollars. It's about how do you give back, and how do you support our community trying to move forward. And so a lot of challenges to that, but also a lot of rewards and and some really nice benefits when you see us be successful as a team, or you see our community be successful.
Yeah, for sure. And that looks like a lot of different things for you is giving back, because some would say what you're doing is giving back by helping these businesses grow into independence, and but you're also involved in some committees, and one of them was the Wichita Stormwater Community. I thought that was interesting for whatever reason. So I just didn't know what you did on that. And
yeah, that's a long story. That's the Stormwater Advisory Board. And that was based on a lot of regulations that came down from the federal government that affected development. And when we looked at what the EPA and what the federal government was proposing for stormwater management and water quality within Wichita, they had the process and procedures that the federal government thought was the way to take care of it within the city of Wichita. And a number of us got together and looked at it and said, we feel like there might be a better way to accomplish your goals and our goals at the same time, but in a better economic way that actually made real impact.
there you go.
And so between myself and several other individuals, we started studying the challenge, not the problem, the challenge. And so we came up with
Nice wordage there.
right. We came up with a solution that, after we studied the science behind it and what we were trying to accomplish and the economics, we came up with a program that was first in the United States to deal with water quality in stormwater drainage that now has a very high impact on environmentally, making our river and our storm basin a lot better, and at a very small amount of the economics. It also preserves the tax base, and it does it very, very economically. And now that's a program that the Kansas KDHE, which is the Kansas Environmental Health Department, and EPA are now starting to promote regionally and now nationally. So at the end of the day, It was very challenging at first. It took us almost 5 to 6 years to accomplish it.
Wow.
But now that's a program that's been operating now for about 3 or 4 years and has been very successful.
Awesome.
So again, you can achieve your business goals and still make positive impacts on your community. And I think that's one way that we were able to do that.
Getting involved with the community. Would you like a quote for that? Because I feel like I had an inspirational a quote that you could maybe use in your next meeting there.
Sure, go ahead. Fire away.
Okay. This was one that my wrestling coach gave to me. So here goes. Fate whispers to the warrior, "You cannot withstand the storm." The warrior whispers back, "I am the storm."
There you go.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
And you, in this case, can be the warrior, and fate or the storm can be an actual storm. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really about coming up with unique change, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many things that people do because that's traditionally the way it was done, or that's what we're used to doing, or that's what we're comfortable with doing. And believe me, that first 2 or 3 years, there was a lot of storm. I mean, we were painted as, you don't want quality water, you don't want healthy drinking water and the river, and a number of environmental things. You know, we had environmental groups that said, "Oh, you guys really are just trying to save money. You're just trying to do this and this." And the fact of it is, yes, we were trying to save money. We were trying to have positive development that was economic for those businesses that want to start businesses, so you don't have to charge more rent. But at the same time, we also thought that we looked at the science behind it, and we said that where the impact is, we can come up with a better scientific way to deal with that. And I'll tell you the difference. 0.4% was the impact of the program, and we ended up dealing with 99.6 of the issue. And so the payback on that was 800 times what the current program that was being suggested without the economic issues and the economic impact. And so from that standpoint, there were many challenges, but to me, the storm to me is how do you break through that common thread of, hey, this is the way we've always done it,
Yeah.
or this is the set way. And today's truth is tomorrow's lie. Mm-hmm. And what that means is what we know today may not be factual tomorrow. And so we need to always be asking, is there a better way to do things?
Yeah.
And that was part of that program.
Wow.
So
Does that segue us
Really
into our
good. Yeah. I'm
inspirational?
feeling inspired. Yes.
Our
yes.
inspirational
Yeah.
place? Amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Sure.
I thought I just had like
Glad to help out.
Yeah. Well, I think that was mutually
It was
beneficial.
straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From quote and
Sure.
your wisdom.
You bet.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay.
I definitely won on that side. But yeah, we can transition to our inspirational part of the podcast where we ask you a question. And this question
It's
is
a hard-hitting question.
hard-hitting
too.
question.
Yes,
Devin, you
yes.
can take
Okay.
it.
And so what we want to know is on your mountain of Mount Rushmore of inspiration, what 4 people would you have on there?
Ooh, okay. So I think you have to put your parents on there.
Mm-hmm. Most people have.
So my dad had a mechanical engineering background, sharp dude. Always was thinking out of the box. Even if as a kid, if I did something or I made something or whatever, he would say, "Oh, that's cool, but did you think about this?" And that was a source of frustration when I was younger, right? Like, "Oh, you're never happy with what I'm doing," and that wasn't his point. His point was, "Okay, great, but did you think about this or this?" So, he was a person that was always looking to design or do something different. And so I think I get some of the attributes from that. My mom was always really super positive. She was the gregarious one. She was the one that, created the Valentine's dance at our church that was for 300 people. And my dad, brought the band in and, the whole thing. So they were always creating these interconnective events and community. And my mom was always the positive one that every day, even though you didn't feel, felt like you wanted to sleep until noon, was coming in and going, hey, it's a great day today. You ought to get up.
For a great day.
Right. And so I think those are attributes that you get. So I'd have to put my mom and dad behind that scenario. Another one is one of my first CEOs I had, Michael Montifrani.
Okay.
And so he's very active today in the Wichita community. He is the CEO of Envision.
Oh,
Okay.
So for vision and blind impaired in Wichita, which we're a very active supporter of theirs. Not only do we have their art gallery at Union Station, and we're a contributor to their initiatives, and we engage with them quite a bit. I think what I learned from Michael was that, and the relationship was, it's not just all about business all the time. It's not just about the numbers. It's not just about keeping your head down and grinding in the business. It has to be more than that. And so him being a master networker and a master community person in Wichita, being around him, and it taught me the thought, what I learned from him was I've got to be active in the community. I need to be involved. Some of it because if you're not, there are some things that could impact you on the business side that you really don't feel are positive. The other item is what are you doing to give back? What are you doing to move the community forward in these different areas? And so I think I learned that from him. And so, and then the fourth one, the fourth one is still out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the fourth one is, right?
Can we allow that?
Yeah.
know if we can allow that.
I have a future mentor that I don't know who that is going to teach me something in the next stage of my life.
There you go. Do we know what we're getting into in the next stage of life? Is it going to continue to be the moving forward of Occidental? Is there going to be any hobbies developed that we're going to take full time now, or what's the next stage of Gary's life look like?
Well, I tend to think that I've got a couple boys that are interested in business. They're interested in they've grown up in a very entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship environment. They have when they would go to a wedding, we would talk about, oh, you could set up a coat rack. It's February and it's snowing out. Yeah. And so they would set up a coat rack and charge, a donation to hang people's coats and all that stuff. So they've grown up in that environment of starting these little businesses, and they've gone to a lot of events and been a part of a lot of stuff. So I think, part of my next effort will be to mentor them and see if there's areas that they might want to participate, and see if they can prove themselves in the business community and what we do, and we'll see. So, I think that's a future opportunity is to do that. The other one is continue to support the community, and I think one of the challenges that we have right now in Wichita is generational, right? So we talk a lot in Wichita about how do we get our young people to stay? Mm-hmm. How do we get them to invest in Wichita? And so to me, the question is the answer. If we invest in them, then they're going to stay in the community. And so I think our big challenge right now in the community, and I'm on the Greater Wichita Partnership Exec Board, which is probably the most active group trying to move Wichita forward economically, and on jobs, on downtown, on a lot of different initiatives. But what we need to do now is we need to include kids that are in elementary, junior high, high school, and college in that process.
Not just young adults.
And not just have them at the table, because every generation says, oh, well, that other generation, they're not quite as worth as our generation or the generation before. And that tells me there's a communication disconnect. It's not that they're different in value, it's just that they might communicate differently, or they might see things, they might operate in a little bit different capacity than we do that we're not used to, right? So it's incumbent upon us to make them comfortable with being in that environment, but we do need to make them a part of the process. And that's not just observing, that's participating. So these different organizations, some of the big push I've been trying to have a dialogue around and really get us to activate on, how do we get elementary kids and junior high kids and college kids to be involved in these initiatives and actually at the table coming up with solutions and then being part of the strategy and the tactics to execute on those. And when we do that, and we have done it somewhat in the Entrepreneurship Task Force, when we've done that, we know that when we put those individuals, those young individuals in places of responsibility, one, they do a great job. Two, they're very successful at doing it. And three, they come back and say, why would I go somewhere else? I'm going to go to Wichita State right here, or Friends or Butler or whatever. I'm going to go and I'm going to get my education here. And I've decided that this is the place for me, because why would I go anywhere else when I can rub elbows with all these CEOs, these leaders? Why would I go somewhere else when I can rub elbows with the deans at the college, who's part of those groups? So when they see all that leadership and the mayor and the city council who are also that are part of those organizations, and they're working with them on a daily basis, they come back and say, well, why would I go somewhere else? I've got all the connections and mentorship here and support here. And what we have found is those individuals want to stay and have stayed. What we need to do is start like a business. We need to start to scale it. And so we know it works.
It's a full circle moment.
It is,
And we've tested it.
Yeah.
So now, how do we scale that up into real impact? And so I think that's where we're at in all the initiatives that we're doing. How do we make that impact generational? So that we're not every 10 years answering, oh, wow, this generation is now 50s and 60s, and we did all of this, but then there's not a connection to the next generation. Because this needs to live on and be generational going forward. And if we do that, then I think we've created something that is really impactful. So it becomes systemic to the DNA of all of our kids. Because we know a kid that grows up in an entrepreneurship environment is 8 times more likely to be entrepreneurial or start an entrepreneurship venture. And so we have to start that generationally when they're young.
Checks out. I feel like there has been a lot of opportunities for that. But
It's getting better, but we could do it at a much better scale. And that's our challenge.
We'll get on that.
There we go.
Yes.
You guys are a part of that.
We have gotten a few young entrepreneurs on here as well for
Absolutely.
their business. It's cool seeing this network grow of starting a podcast. So we're excited to continue that. But
You bet.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Nice.
Just kind of continuing as you have stated about kind of going into more of, in the future, becoming more of a mentor in everything. What advice would you give to somebody who's young and thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, and kind of what guidance would you throw their way?
Sure. So there are a lot of ways of opportunity to get mentorship. You've got the business school at Wichita State. You've got the entrepreneurship department at Wichita State. You've got the Create campaign with Christina Long. I'm a founding board member with her. So there are a ton of ways. There's Nexus, which I was the co-chair of Nexus, which was E2E. So there are now a lot of ways in the ecosystem to get involved. So it's a matter of, I think, those individuals getting involved and joining those groups and interacting with them, because within that ecosystem are the different mentors and people that could provide capital if they needed capital backing, if they needed mentorship on how to run a business, or there's a lot of people with a lot of expertise there. So I would say by looking at all those different organizations and getting actively involved puts you in the middle of everything you need to have with starting a business. It gives you a support mechanism from an economic standpoint, from a managerial standpoint, or a mentorship standpoint. When you look at other communities, we are ahead of the game when you look at other communities in those areas in the last 6 or 7 years for what we've grown through those initiatives.
If you could start a business again, kind of using that advice today in this environment and taking advantage of any opportunities, also giving advice for those people. I'm not going to steal this advice at all. But what would you do in this environment?
Well, if you look at the last 20 years, and certainly it's accelerating the last 10 and 5 and now, if you look at the greatest value created, it's all been in technology, right? So if I was going to turn my attention, generationally, or I was a lot younger, I would be looking at technology, those areas of technology, because those are the largest areas of growth.
Yeah.
And now the challenge becomes barrier of entry. So you still a lot of times have to create a very low barrier of entry into those industries. And so you can't necessarily, can you go and say, okay, I'm going to go do Tesla, or I'm going to go do Apple? That's a really high barrier of entry position.
I see
So
what
I
you
think
mean.
what you have to do is, it's still technology based, but you'd have to start at some lower barrier of entry so that you can get yourself in a place that you can be successful.
Yeah.
Because often I think the one thing with technology is people pick these really big, grand ideas, and that's great. But you have to realize out of 1,000 companies, a lot of times only one becomes the unicorn, right? So getting something that's technology driven, but maybe it helps out existing industry, is probably a higher success level. So I think you have to take those core industries, but look at technology and say, okay, I want to get involved in technology, but how does it support this core industry that the success level could be very high versus having something really high on the disruption level, which becomes really risky and a little bit more difficult. But technology would definitely be the area that I think you would have the most opportunity.
Artificial intelligence.
Ooh, that's tricky.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's
I said it.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Think about that.
View on that?
Yeah. Let's hear
Okay.
it.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I just wanted to say a word in there.
Yeah. So AI is the wild, wild west right now, right?
Yeah.
And it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And I think it kind of breaks in those two categories. I think that it won't necessarily replace people, but what it will help is help them to do their jobs or whatever they're trying to do more efficient.
Yeah.
And so I know there's a number of people that stand on all different sides of that. Oh, it's going to replace people and it's going to be a job killer and all that. I think that's not unlike going from
Cars replacing horses.
Cars replacing horses.
The horse industry,
The
whole that
absolutely.
It's been down ever since.
It's always scary because it's new, right?
Yeah.
It's this unknown technology out there, and it's unknown, and it can be scary for the existing generation. And so there are challenges to it. You do have to manage it correctly, but I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of things that it's going to help with. Okay, and potentially there'll be other things that eliminate. But the one thing great about the human species is we're adaptable, and we evolve, and we have the ability to critically think, and so we can change, hopefully, our destination and adjust our pathway. And I'm going to be on the side of the positive and say that I believe in the human race will do the things that they need to pivot and be able to utilize it in a correct way.
Yeah.
So
reason I also just blurted that word out was because of, getting into technology and, using that to efficientize businesses. I don't know if that's a word.
But it sounds good.
It sounds good.
Right.
Yeah. There's been a lot of words thrown out here today, so I don't know who's going to be fact checking this, but we'll go with it. But yeah, no. So I think that could be interesting, and I don't know if you were using that at all in your industry of management.
Yeah, we have some AI things going.
Yeah.
Whether we're using it fully to its capacity, that's gonna, we're always learning, and we're always trying to find ways that it can benefit us to what we do. And I think that's probably where everyone's at right now. Is everyone's in that position to say, okay, how can it be a benefit? And then also, you're looking at from cybersecurity and things of that nature, you're also looking at your companies and saying, how do we also make sure the negative side of AI isn't impacting our businesses? Mm-hmm. You obviously saw the city of Wichita had an issue with a cybersecurity attack.
Mm-hmm. So,
there are safeties that you have to put in place too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure. Well, it's very good future advice for as we go into the future.
Right.
So we appreciate that. I think we do have to wrap this up soon. Are we at 50 minutes, you said?
Right at 50.
Okay, right at 50. So we'll start toning down our questions here. But I had another segment that we do is called "What do you say to people who say?" And it's dangerous sometimes because people say a lot of things.
They
right.
do.
So this one is directed at you. And
okay.
It's what do you say to people who say, "Are you a millionaire? And if you are, can I have some of that millionaire?"
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. People
know,
say that. I didn't say that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't really think in terms of like adding zeros.
Mm-hmm.
I think about shooting threes. And like a basketball game, if you shoot threes, then the scoreboard takes care of itself, right, at the end of the day. And so I tend to look at more, did we create value? Are we making impacts in the community, things of that nature? And so is economics part of business? And, do you have to do the math and add things up and make sure that things work? Yes. But when I think about that, I think about it's more important for someone that would ask that to say, okay, what are you passionate about? Where can you create the most value in the community and for yourself and whatever business you're going to put together? And if they say, okay, I feel like I can do that, and they're asking to have a capital investment, or a monetary infusion or something.
Shark Tank.
Right. So I think then you got to prove out the value and the business model and all of that. And are we willing to invest?
All right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If someone's asking, hey, can I have a little bit of that? Yes. It's not given to you.
Yeah.
You have to earn it.
Okay, I was just asking. I mean,
yeah, right.
I wasn't,
right.
but I was just. Someone was asking.
Right.
I could have some.
Yeah. So at the end of the
hypothetically.
day, yeah. So at the end of the day, we look at a lot of business models and we look at a lot of opportunities and we measure those out. And the jockey a lot of times is more important than the horse in my book. So
there you go.
The business itself is secondary to the person that's driving the train or the leader. And do they have the attributes and the values that we think make a good business leader that can be successful in whatever business they're doing?
Yeah.
And so ultimately, we're going to look at that person and say, okay, yeah, are we willing to invest in you? Absolutely. But you also have to have the goods, and then you also have to be able to execute.
There you go. Execution
is key. Is key because a dream's a dream unless you can execute.
Yeah.
Right. Then it becomes reality.
What are some common qualities that you see in some of your most successful business ventures or business partners or tenants?
Sure. Yeah.
Execution.
So passion, tenacity, they have to be tenacious, because one day it's up, next day it's down, right? And so it comes in waves, right? And so you have to be able to work through those downturns and not give up, because there'll be a lot of those, right? And you also have to be positive. You always have to be saying, okay, today didn't go so great, but tomorrow's going to be terrific. I got to wake up tomorrow and I got to get back on the horse and I got to get rolling again, right? I think you also have to be, I always say, be infatuated with an idea or an opportunity, but very quickly it has to turn into reality. So that's the execution part, right? So that dream, it has to be doable. And you have to see some linear way to get there, that you can put a strategy together and you can execute on that tactic to get you there. So it has to be realistic.
Yeah.
So so you can have all the passion in the world, you can have all the other attributes, you can be tenacious, but you've got to also be able to execute and make it happen. And so those are the things that I always look for. Those are big. Yeah. And some of them, you can teach some. Some of those can be learned, and others are sometimes natural. Okay. So
yeah, that's some great advice to people looking for those, which qualities to work on more, for myself included, because I think there's a little bit of tenacity that could always be improved on. So
sure, you bet.
Appreciate that.
You bet.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute honor to sit in a chair next to you, and we've gotten a lot of great advice. I hope the listeners have taken some of the advice, taken hold on to that.
I mean, in the first 5 minutes, there's so many gems that you gave us.
Yep.
So we really appreciate you taking your time to come out and be on our podcast.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share and be a part of your podcast. It was a lot of fun and it was enjoyable. So thank you.
So glad.
Yeah. If anybody wants any more information or to pick your brain or anything like that, how can they reach out to you? Or
sure. I've always taken the position. I'm open to, so easy to find me on LinkedIn, easy to find me, in the community. Give me a call or whatever, and I'm glad to sit down and talk with you.
There you go. We'll put the LinkedIn information on there or something like
you
that.
Bet.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right.
Like and subscribe.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Turtleneck Table Talk. Make sure and hit that like and that subscribe button so that you can always keep up to date when we have new episodes coming out.